thank you, everyone. So I'm today bringing a slightly different hat. So as Wolfgang said, I'm the CEO of Vitergia. So we do disclaimer: InnerSource consultancy, InnerSource services, and metrics, and then open source risk management and reporting and so on. So we are here today to discuss about InnerSource value metrics, and basically the main question is why we are doing this. So over the years, or the main motivation that we've had at the InnerSource Commons, we keep having the same question. So then how can I convince upper management to make this happen? And then what is the return of investment? What is what we are having as value? And then we all know the benefits. So we know, oh yeah, we want to break down silos, we want to go faster to market, we want to do many other things. But at the end of the day, we need the dollars, right? We need the dollar discussion. So Cham, there is this special interest group at Finoes. He was having exactly those questions. And then so what you have here now on stage is a couple of people highly motivated to try to answer this. And what we have produced, and then you will see at the end, is more than, let's say, merely metrics. We are bringing a actual framework on how to measure the value of your InnerSource initiative. So moving forward, so this is the agenda. So why we are doing this, I already mentioned part of this. We are discussing about 4 basic, let's say, value metrics for InnerSource. We are bringing some data and examples based on this, and then how we can apply this. And then there is an open call, basically call to action for everyone to bring their own thoughts and ideas. So you want to introduce yourself?
Yep. So everyone knows Daniel. So I just briefly a bit more introduction to myself. So I'm working at Citi in London. I work in the high performance architecture team. I'm also very involved with FinOS, which is the FinTech Open Source Foundation, also part of Linux Foundation. And there I'm leading InnerSource. I'm also doing GenAI as a framework and benchmarking. I've got pretty much GenAI coming out of my ears these days. All the images here were created by GenAI. And then I think also in a previous life, the reason I started InnerSource and is a big advocate for InnerSource in Citi is because I had a big background also in open source. I was advocating for open source since 2004. I did a lot of humanitarian open source. I knew Denise in those days really driving open source and also working with Free Software Foundation. A little disclaimer, I'm from a very regulated industry, so I have to say that my views are my own. They don't necessarily represent the policy of Citi. Yeah, I mean, Citi, I'm pretty much very involved with InnerSource. So in FinOS, I think with the financial institutions, where that's the open source forum for them, I think one of the key things is the value, right? It's particularly acute with financial institutions. You have to really explain the ROI. And I think that needs to be the first question that they will ask, even before getting involved. I think from a grassroots movement, we can advocate for it. We know we can feel the value. We can understand the value ourselves individually. But when it comes to really explaining and convincing them, we have to get to the ROI. So that's really where we come from, and that's where we see a lot within our forum. That's what they're really asking for.
And then this fits perfectly with the InnerSource mission, which is about growing the body of knowledge from an InnerSource perspective. So then whatever is aligned with this mission and return of investment discussions, the putting dollars to how to measure all of this, is basically part of our mission. So that's why we are doing this.
Okay, so I think everyone's talked about Conway's law here. I think pretty much most presentations have, and we are no different in financial institutions. It might be a bit more acute. I think you have your application, because especially for medium to large enterprises, you have many groups which are organized and structured by the operating model of that organization. And then your ability to get your job done is there, but really the scope of your project is much larger, right? And then what you really need to do is you end up having to negotiate for features with these other teams to get your job done. And so I think everyone knows this. I'm not going to elaborate further on it. So you kind of get very frustrated because you need to get your job done, and then you need to hope that upstream team will implement your feature. Of course, you bring in open source the open source way is why I'm really driving this. And you can see that certainly if those teams change that culture and the way of doing things, those boundaries become much more open, and you're able to make a pull request. And your ability now to get the job done is much larger. But you're also contributing to those teams. And we want to articulate that value as well.
So, well, you know about the usual challenges that we are seeing from an InnerSource perspective, right? So then we are discussing about organizational silos, so how to work around them, basically, cheese interface, lack of awareness, findability, discoverability, or lack of clarity of certain rules. We've been discussing about this all during the day. And there are existing patterns, about all of these problems, including the InnerSource portal, InnerSource license pattern. There are some more. But then we saw that there is a gap. And then specifically is the lack of understanding of measurable benefit, basically.
And this is really where we're coming in. This is, I think, the missing part of the puzzle where we need to convince the middle managers with metrics, with clear metrics, and we need to convince the senior level chiefs with ROI. And that's where this fits in.
So then if I were to convince my manager to do certain things, hey, we are going to break down silos, we need to improve efficiency, there are so many things, we are accelerating innovation, we are enhancing the quality and morale of the people, we are doing many things, the people will be happy. Okay, bye. But then the answer will be basically...
Yeah, so the boss will always say, show me the money. They love it in principle, but you need to really articulate what is the benefit really to the organization. So we came up with 4 key metrics for this. I think there's a lot more metrics, but we found that we did a bit of a double diamond exercise in our SIG, and we felt these were the most easier to articulate and measure. So the first aspect of these metrics are the development cost saved for the organization at large, right? So that is the reuse, the benefit of reuse across the organization. Then it's the reduced cost of ownership because you're centralizing some assets, and then not multiple people have to do the fixes, the upgrades, all that kind of stuff. And then you also need to calculate from a business benefit. So InnerSource does help with time to market. It helps you deal with the product faster through the reuse of those assets, but also it helps with standards. And then finally, I think you need to think more at that project level. What is it for them? And there, I think it's all about, I'm actually getting some free development, right? And I'm free development to really improve my product. So they need to see it that way. But if they can articulate it that way as well, in terms of the dollar value, then they can further sell it for their sponsors.
Yeah, and when we were discussing about this, we were trying to design this with data that already exists in the corporation. So this means that you already know how much this cost, existing projects, you know how much effort this typically took. So there are some pieces of information that you already have in place. And then you can use them basically to analyze or have all of this in place. So that was how to lower the barrier to really have this framework running.
So I'll start with the conceptual model of how we created these equations. So we take the conceptual model of InnerSource project has multiple components. Now you can define these components at different levels of granularity that you want. And then some of those components are going to get reused, and some of those components might get improved. If you're lucky, they'll contribute that back. And they might even contribute some new components. So this is the conceptual model that we are working through. And then the first measure we'll talk about. I think in this measure we'll dive a bit further into how we might do it. So we try to keep these equations very simple. There might be further complexities, but I think from a point of estimation, sometimes you just need a level of approximation to provide to your management. So here we said, the saving is if you go sum across the number of components, it is the number of times that components are adopted in entirety, maybe -1 because maybe a little bit more than 1 strictly, because there's a cost of development. So it's the cost of what it would have taken to build that component from scratch. And then you would then multiply that by the cost of development minus the cost of adoption, right? So then this is a good equation where you need to work on your cost of adoption because you'll optimize the value. So this is kind of the cost saved times adopted, and so this is the first metric.
Yeah, and the cost of adoption is what you said is quite important, because if you are able to reduce the cost of adoption by having better communication, much more documentation in place, really having the right information there, that metric will be lower. So then basically the final cost save will be higher.
So we'll go through a bit more detail on this one because I've actually worked on this one practically. But before that, I want to mention that we also have a white paper that is published with the FinOS. So this is a joint white paper with FinOS that we've done.
Yeah, don't worry that much about all of this. It's basically that we did some work together. So you don't have to read all of this now. It's just to show that there is
but
some
you
problem.
can download it. You don't have to subscribe, but if you want to subscribe, if you want to continue to get involved in this working group. What the white paper has, the more detail it explains each of these metrics. It tells you, we don't give you the exact how to do it, but we'll tell you ways you might be able to achieve that result within your organization. Maybe you want to do a survey, maybe you want to use a more automated system based on what you have. And then we also recommended some tools you can potentially use to achieve those metrics as well. Yeah, I just wanted to mention that. And I'll just give an example of a kind of practical example which I have done. And here I did a work example. In this example, I took that basic formula, and what I did is I used function point analysis to work out the size using what you call a backward function point. That estimation model has been there since 1970s. I worked it for each language of that component, and I worked out a value of that component. We had to, and then I took some averages on the typical hours per function point, and then I worked out for this component, it's going to provide this amount of value for this organization. So then what you do is then you sum across all the components that that project has used, and you have a bill of materials. In this case, it's actual bill, right, of materials of the value saved to the organization. So this is kind of this is a script, a bit of code I wrote that then automatically generates it for you. How it actually works, you might be interested, is that what it does in this instance, again, you don't have to use this particular way of doing it. I processed Artifactory to do the calculation, right? And this is a Java project. And I extracted the code, did the static code analysis, stored the value, and then for each project that uses it, I used the Maven or Gradle build system and the dependency graph to work out how much they have used, and then to create actual SBOM with value. So this is one way. You might have other ways. You might have other tools that you use internally to do this, but this is just a practical example how you can apply that.
Oh, this is my time. So then we were discussing about the another metric, which is the reduced overall cost of ownership. So the total cost of ownership is basically how many times this was adopted again. So we go to the same metric as before. And then we have two things to play with. Basically, the cost of vulnerability. So then we need, if there is a problem, someone is going to fix this. So it's going to take certain time. That's it. And then the other is the cost of upgrade. So basically, if you are moving into a new version, major release, or whatever. So then whatever is this is a total cost going there. So then we have the total reduced overall cost of ownership. Again, we are trying to simplify most of the metrics. But then at the same time, this is giving you a starting point to gather all this data.
Yeah, and the white paper has some detail of how you might calculate each of these specific areas. I'll do the next one. I think we also need to say that actually InnerSource can help your time to market, because it's not just about the cost saved, it's about that agility that you provide. And so again, there are certain things, components in software that benefit from standards, especially like the UI or the particular model for logging or security. So these kind of things are very valuable as InnerSource components and will greatly reduce your cost of development and your time to market. So that one, again, time for development, but again, you also have to factor in the time for adoption. And again, the investment you make in helping to reduce the time of adoption also pays dividend. But you can also do it another way. You could also say, because you've got this benefit, you need to give me the money to help me reduce the time of adoption. So that's the one. And then finally.
Yeah, and then finally, basically what we have here is at the level of project. Remember that we had three main areas: organizational benefit, business impact. So then this is working at the level of project. So then we have two things, basically. The total development cost saved, we were thinking, well, this is the aggregation of two things. The first one is the development cost of contribution. So basically, what is the cost? How much investment has been made to the success of the project from other teams? So basically, how much time, and then how we are translating this into cost, and then the cost of core team support. So again, the more documentation, the more guidance that we have for others to contribute to my project, then certain cost will be lower. So then we want to maximize basically the cost saved, so then we need to minimize the cost of the core team support. And we know all basically how to start with this.
Yep. So, I mean, this one's a really good one for our project team, because if you can articulate, you know, the benefit you got from other teams to the success of your project, you can use that to say, well, if I can multiply this and create that ecosystem, then we will create further benefit for our project and make it more successful with more in-source contribution. Actually, I think that's a good thing, because sometimes the people that contribute are actually the experts in that area, and it's very beneficial to the project. So applying this, I think just a few tips, but I'm sure everyone knows these kind of things. Certainly, I think you need to align to your strategic imperative of the day. Make sure how you position it to stakeholders are aligning to that strategic measure, whatever those goals are. Certainly, the statement of operational efficiency, residual total cost of ownership, those are the kind of terms that you want to use with them, and that will resonate very well at senior levels. They might not understand InnerSource, but they will understand that. And then time to market is competitive advantage. So that is going to definitely be written. And then finally, that data-driven approach of giving them the data and the data points. It doesn't have to be exactly precise when you come to this kind of estimation. It needs to be good enough. It needs to be justifiable. So,
and the good thing, probably, sorry for interrupting, but it's like if you have data, you may start doing experiments. So, okay, so what does it mean if we try to improve the quality of documentation, certain things, so then you know exactly how much will be the cost of adoption for a certain technology. So then the lower, the better again.
Yeah, and I think this is very important, because I think InnerSource, as much as it is very, a ground-up stuff, it still needs a central team to govern it. And having this will help you justify that investment and hopefully create an economic ecosystem that will make it grow further.
Yeah, this is an example. Again, we're in the hat of Vitergia, so that we had a customer, and then we were helping them to implement InnerSource. So then what we saw is, okay, if you are doing, this is 4 teams or 4 regions or 4 countries, whatever, if you are doing this from scratch, this would be approximately the cost of doing this, like all the total development cost. But if you were doing this in an InnerSource way, then this is the real cost of all together. So 2 highlights here. The first one is, so the cost of adoption is not 0. As you can see, there is a cost of adoption that will be spread around the different regions. But then at the same time, the total cost of working in an InnerSource way is not exactly as the 100% cost that you expect it to have. So then we have certain efficiency that then you in the corporation can spend for other things. I think we are running out of time.
Cool. Okay. You want to talk about that?
Yeah, super quick. So then we have, we split this into 2 main areas, basically the corporation, the business impact. So what is what we see here? Corporation perspective. So we have now a reproducible and measurable a return of investment framework that you can apply. And we are initially basing this on metrics and data sets that you should have internally, because you are tracking, you are able to analyze and track who is producing what. It's easy to automatize, and then this helps to facilitate discussions with upper management. From the FinOS and InnerSource Commons perspective, this is useful because we are creating something generic for everyone, and can be reproducible, and basically you can adopt this if needed.
Cool. We'll have more assets, and we're going to do more stuff, and we're going to join hands with FinOS and InnerSource Commons around this as well. So we're going to try to create a safe space, especially for the financial institutions, to discuss it and talk about the best practices and how they can really take things to stakeholders. So we'll be doing more. We'll announce that on the DLs, but do subscribe, to check out the white paper. I'm sure it can do with improvements, so we welcome your InnerSource contribution to that as well. But yeah, that's it.
This is it. Thank you.